Well, welcome to this week's edition of 90.7 Perspectives on WVAS, the voice of Alabama State University. I'm your host, Robb Taylor. In the studio with me tonight, two wonderful guests. First, we have Greg Cochran, the Executive Director of the Alabama League of Municipalities, and Mayor Tony Haygood of Tuskegee. They're here to share their insight about key issues impacting Alabama municipalities, like health care, public safety, and the vital role of collaboration with lawmakers. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for stopping by.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
Before we get into some of those issues, let me get you, Mr. Cochran, to tell us a little bit about the League of Municipalities and exactly what is it that you all do?
Well, the Alabama League of Municipalities is an association of municipal governments across the state of Alabama. We have 465 municipalities across our state, all that are unique in their own development. And we were formed in 1935 to represent them and be a voice for them as policies are being debated across our state of how do we build vibrant communities. And we're so excited to be here today to talk a little bit about the league and to talk about our communities and to be here with Mayor Haygood, who's our past president, and will offer you some insight into what it takes to have a vibrant community.
And Mayor Haygood, as Mayor of Tuskegee, let me have you just comment regarding being a part of the League of Municipalities.
It's hard to describe how important the league is to our city and all the other cities in the state of Alabama. The league gives us information, gives us direction, gives us advocacy support at the state legislature, and by being a part of the league, then you're up on top of most of the current issues and things that we need to do to be most effective in our communities, and we appreciate the league's guidance in that area.
So, Mr. Cochran, can you give us an overview of what the Advocacy Day is all about and why it's so important for municipalities across Alabama?
I sure can. As you pointed out, we have issues like healthcare, infrastructure across our state, law enforcement, public safety, economic development. These are important fabrics in our community to ensure that our community can be vibrant. So with public health and public safety, you want to make sure people have access to care. You want to make sure that when they go out to eat at restaurants and shop at your local stores, they feel safe and they feel well to do that. And so it's so important. You can get to where you think these are siloed issues, but they really aren't. They weave a fabric throughout your community on economic development, on jobs and opportunity, and being able to build a vibrant community. It's so important. Today, when you talk to Ella McNair at the Commerce Department, she will ask her businesses that they're trying to recruit to Alabama, what's your number one important attraction to a community? And they'll say quality of place. Ensuring that people want to come there and live and work so that when they invest those dollars and resources into the community, they know they can fulfill their mission.
And when people are looking at a decision where they want to come there and live, they look at, I'm sure, education, but they also look at health care. We've got a lot of hospitals closing across the state of Alabama. Your thoughts when it comes to hospital closings here in the state of Alabama?
It's an issue that we have to figure out and solve because we get notices about once a month of a service being discontinued in a community or a facility being closed. And that impacts the full community and the quality of that community when that happens. Because now you're asking parents of a sick child to have to travel to another metropolitan area to receive health care. Or if you have a dental appointment or an eye appointment, you're not being able to do that locally. That takes you out of the workforce that day. So we want to make sure that whatever that looks like moving forward, that access to care has to be the most important part of that puzzle. And whether it's building acute systems or sites in place around our communities, acute care, or triage areas in case of and then get you to a metropolitan area where a specialist can see you. We need to figure that out, but we need to figure it out as a whole for our state and what works and what doesn't work.
And Mayor Haygood, what are your thoughts? Hospitals that are closing mainly in rural areas.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge. Hospitals are closing in rural areas because the costs are up, the reimbursement for services are down. And so you got to be able to retain the quality doctors, and you got to be able to cover the costs in those hospitals. A lot of this has been done in the past by support not only from the state, but largely from the federal government. So we need both the state and federal government support in order to have hospitals in those locations. And we've seen a number of closings in rural areas, and then we have hospitals even in our urban areas now being threatened to close because of the cost of services and inability to recoup the, dollars that are required to maintain those services.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important in our communities because, as Greg was saying, when you think about things that we sometimes assume will be there, and all of a sudden we look around and they're not there, then people get nervous. And so when a hospital closes in one community and then in another community, the distance gets even further.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, when we see the sort of hospitals closing in rural areas, a lot of us probably thought, well, they just need more funding. But then when you have a hospital like Jackson Hospital that's right there at closing its doors, then I think it's like a wake-up call to a lot of people.
Yes.
What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, it's a wake-up call in the sense that we realize it's not just rural areas where we assume they're too small or they're not doing something right or there are not enough people. It's more about the whole matrix of how you're working with the cost, the doctors, the services. In order to maintain a quality hospital, you have to have, sufficient resources coming in. And I don't care what kind of business you run, the hospital is a business, although it provides a critical life service in the community. So we have to find out how we support that. When it happens in a major city, in a major hospital like Jackson, it hits everybody because it's not just Montgomery, it's all the areas around central Alabama that come to Montgomery. Mm-hmm. For instance, most of my services are at Jackson Hospital because we don't have a hospital. We haven't had one for a number of years. Well, recently, Bullitt County next door closed their hospitals where a lot of our people would go for prenatal care and other services. And so now that Jackson is threatened, that's a lot of areas around Montgomery, not only in Montgomery, which has other hospitals, but you get a lot of communities that come to Jackson for services. And so it has a trickle effect when you have one hospital closing, especially in an urban center that's a regional hospital.
I have to ask you this. Is that something where you think the communities should all come together to, hey, let's try and save this hospital or that hospital, because it's not just one city that's, because the hospital is located in this city, that this city is using it, but it's surrounding areas. Should surrounding areas come together and say, let's see what we can all do?
Absolutely. It's mutual aid. We all benefit from that, so we all have to come together to save that hospital. Do what we can in our communities, but we absolutely have to save that hospital. I'll give you one quick example. I got a call the other morning, a couple of weeks ago, that on a Saturday morning, about 5:45, and a councilman from Union Springs said, Mayor, I didn't know who was calling. I didn't recognize the call. I didn't answer it first. I called back, so I answered the second time. It was a councilman who said, Mayor, our downtown is burning down. I said, what? He said, we need some help. Can you get us some help? I called our fire chief. Long story short, we eventually sent a ladder truck down there. And because we had a ladder truck that could shoot from 8 floors all the way down, we were able to save the rest of the downtown. 2 buildings burned down. But it was mutual aid. That's 25, 30 miles away that we had to respond because they have a volunteer fire department. Well, it's the same thing you look at healthcare. If you don't have healthcare in those areas, we depend on other areas next door to us or in Montgomery that's being served. So we all have to pull together to save that hospital because it services our areas, as well as try to do what we can in our areas, as Greg said, to strengthen urgent cares and any other hospitals in rural areas. We're all affected.
Mm-hmm. And I think it really takes all levels of government working together, building a strategic plan on how to build the infrastructure back in place. The issue's too big just for cities to solve. We need our counties to come together with our state lawmakers and our federal delegation to figure out how do we build a new sustainable infrastructure across our state, a real network to get the access to care that citizens deserve, but then to recruit and retain all the medical professionals, as Mayor Haygood pointed out, and then to properly fund the facilities. And that way you have that kind of trifecta of success that would bring about a successful, sustainable process.
Another issue, all municipalities deal with crime in some way or another, but law enforcement and making sure law enforcement have the support and help that they need, because they face a lot of challenges. You all recently heard from law enforcement regarding some of those challenges. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, we're finding less and less men and women going into the profession of law enforcement for varied reasons. There's other opportunities in livelihood, but mainly you're asking a person to put their life on the line every day. And it takes a special individual that is willing to do that, to serve the public in that way. So we're going to, again, much like healthcare, we're going to have to find, how do we recruit and retain these officers? How do we build that community and support under them to keep them engaged in the law enforcement field? Because it's so important to a community, for citizens to feel safe and for businesses to be successful. And certainly, the mayor can talk more about that at a personal level, where I tend to look at it at a state level. So I'll turn it over to you, Mayor, let you talk a little bit more about what you're doing at home.
Yeah. Well, we, like other cities, are now recruiting additional officers. And the challenge is, naturally, number one is the pay, but also the benefits. And I think that we're looking at how can the legislature help us, how can others help us to make it more appealing to persons to go into law enforcement. It's a challenging area. It's not always appreciated, somewhat like elected officials. They don't always express appreciation to law enforcement officers, and they're a critical part of our community. And again, the sad thing is, we look to law enforcement thinking they'll be there all the time. We expect them to be there. But when they're not and the numbers aren't there, then we have to find out why not and what do we do to resolve that. Because as Greg said, there's an expectancy of having security in an area and feeling safe. And we just assume that, but it's not something you can assume. We have to work at making sure they're there, they're compensated, they're taken care of, and they want to go into that area, and they know they can make a good living and be elevated from their positions.
And so you go to state lawmakers and say, hey, maybe you all should look at raising the pay of law enforcement officers, since it's such a dangerous profession, but we need them. And, the law enforcement, the numbers are not as high as they used to be. So what do you say to that?
Well, Governor Ivey and the legislature has proposed a package of bills to help law enforcement, to be able, for our communities to be able to recruit and retain law enforcement officers, helping them with higher education grants for their children, for themselves, building up some new standards that would help us recruit good quality officers, and making sure that they have the liability protection they need to do their job without fear of being drawn into a lawsuit if they were doing their job correctly. But I do think, again, like healthcare, we're going to have to get all levels of government working on this together, because there's not a municipality that's immune to public safety. They all need public safety. They all deserve public safety, and we're going to keep focusing on that issue as we move into the future.
And Rob, if I can say one thing that I think Greg was mentioning, when you recruit quality officers, it makes the whole system better, and those officers are more comfortable, and they're safer because they're working with people of quality who are going to do the right thing. Part of the challenge has been we've had officers who've done the wrong thing in some areas, and it gets elevated everywhere, and it makes them look bad. It makes officers look bad. When you have 95% of the officers are great and doing well, you have a smaller portion somewhere that may not be, but it reflects badly on the other officers, makes it uncomfortable and unsafe for them. People need to recognize the job that officers are doing. So when you have quality officers that represent the department well, it makes it better for everybody, the community included, and the appreciation level is raised. So it makes it safer.
Mayor, what are there other issues that you're hoping to focus on this year, other key issues?
Well, the main thing is maintaining the quality of life, as we say, for our citizens in all areas. We have daily things that they face in terms of the challenges. Education, as you said, has to be improved, which some cities deal with. That's in our county, that's dealt with by the county. But the law enforcement issue is the key one. Economic development and providing jobs, which we're fortunate we're able to do. We get more jobs in our community and more resources to take care of things that people ask about, streets and potholes and the everyday things that we get asked about. Well, as you get more revenue in your community, then you're able to take care of those potholes in the streets and other things that they interact with that cause them headaches or they call us about. So it's a matter of addressing a lot of the issues that, citizens call us about on a daily basis. And we're fortunate we're getting more revenues so we can address some of those things.
Yeah, just take a moment to talk a little bit about Macon County, because Tuskegee, you all are moving right along there.
Yeah, we're fortunate. We're fortunate. We got our first major industry in the city a little over a year ago. As a matter of fact, I had a call earlier this afternoon. They want to have a one-year celebration of operations at Samkey, which is a South Korean automotive plant. Now I think I can announce that we're probably getting ready to open a second automotive plant, which was even larger than Samkey. Mm-hmm. We opened a travel center after 5 years that had been closed. We had a lot of frustration and challenges in getting that open, but we worked with the utilities board and developers, and we all came together. Now that's open and generating good revenue for the community. And we're bringing flight training back to Moulton Field, along with Tuskegee University, where the Tuskegee Airmen were trained. Mm-hmm. And the university is involved again, who was involved in training the Tuskegee Airmen. So we have a few things going on. That's positive activity creates more positive activity, as you know. So we're fortunate and the beneficiary of good things happening, and we knock on wood and keep looking for them to keep happening.
Okay. Mr. Cochran, on a lighter note, live locally. When I was reading it, I kind of felt a little excited, felt good about it when I was researching information. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Live Locally Alabama is a campaign that we started, and our communications director, Lori Johns, who is a graduate of Alabama State University, is really pushed this program out to our citizens and to our local officials to show the quality of life that municipalities across our state bring to citizens. We have a saying that we provide the economic foundation for our state. Mm-hmm. When you look at where most people live, it's in communities. When you look at where jobs are created, it's in communities, and services are provided by communities. Grocery stores and restaurants and retail stores are usually within a municipality's jurisdiction. So it's real important that we have that fundamental foundation of all these issues, dealing with them in the right way, so that we can talk about that when we're out recruiting industry and citizens to our state. And this film, this public service that we're doing through Live Locally, helps us push that message out there. I tell people all the time, people forget when they wake up in the mornings and they go through their daily routine, just all the touch points that municipal government has on their lives in a positive way, as Mayor Haygood talked about, from making sure that there's clean water delivered to your home in the morning to brush your teeth, to electricity, running the air conditioner and heater in your house, to when you walk out and you get in your car and you take the road into your work. Mm-hmm. It's all that is funded for the most part through your city, not through the state. And so it's so important that we make sure that our cities are properly funded and that they have these opportunities to get revenues in to provide the quality of life services that we all want. And this Live Locally campaign just reminds citizens that we're working hard every day. Our mayors and our council members are public citizens of the communities they live in, so they're impacted by all the things that we ask our citizens to be impacted by.
Okay, so I'm trying to get you to paint a picture, make it a little clearer for everybody out there. So Mayor Haygood, Mayor of Tuskegee, he reaches out to the League of Municipalities. And how does the league help or work with Mayor Haygood?
So that's a great question, and we do this opportunity with all of our cities. We look at the resources they need to build the community that they want to live in. As we talked about at the beginning of the show, we have 465 unique municipalities in our state. Mm-hmm. And even in this local river region area, Montgomery doesn't want to be Millbrook. Millbrook doesn't want to be Wetumpka. Wetumpka doesn't want to be Prattville. They want to be their unique cities in themselves. So our job is to find them the resources and tools to help them realize their best self and help them build vibrant communities, whether they want to focus on tourism, economic investment by having businesses recruited in, or whether they want to just be known as a little cottage town. Mm-hmm. So we work hard to listening to our mayors and our council members who represent our communities of what are the resources we can help provide you as an association? And I think we do a pretty good job. Not that I'm bragging on myself, but our team. And in this state, we focus a lot on football and sports,
Right.
and five-star talent. Well, I'm telling you, we have a lot of five-star talent at the league, and we're proud to represent our mayors across the state because they energize us, and we try to match that energy and commitment to our citizens to ultimately impact their lives in a positive way.
Man, Haygood, would you agree with that?
I'd have to agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'd have to agree. Greg and his staff at the League of Municipalities is one of the best. If you want to have a corporation, you couldn't be any better than that. And they're not actually a corporation; they're a service organization to all our cities. We do an excellent job. They got quality talent. They're responsive. They give you the tools, as Greg said. They give you the direction. One of the other things that they do is they share information. See, we learn from other cities, and that saves us a lot of time. So we don't have to go start and research and take the wheel. Because of the resources we have at the league, the talent, they share information that we need. Everything from how to get financial resources at the federal level down to legal information, how to best run the city, what's legally possible in the city, and also to the individuals elected in the cities, the mayors and the city council persons, what we can and can't do so that we stay out of trouble and we stay in good standing with the Ethics Commission.
Okay. Gentlemen, anything else you all like to add? If I missed something?
We just appreciate this opportunity and to, kind of share with some of our citizens and others the importance of what our cities do. It's a lot of things that we do automatically, like Greg said. You turn on the light switch, you don't think about somebody said about what's happening behind the light switch. Who's keeping it on? How does it happen? We just expect the lights to come on. The same thing about most of the other services in the city. You turn around, you make a phone call, you expect law enforcement to be there. You don't expect to say, well, we might not have enough people. Or in our situation, like without a hospital, the adjustment we had to make was to make arrangements to have helicopters flying now. Half the people who go to hospital from Tuskegee, they fly the helicopters in. So we have certain areas identified where they can land easily, whatever part of the city, if there's an emergency. If we can't get that person to the hospital within a quick period of time, the helicopter's on the way. So we make the adjustments to try to satisfy the needs of the citizens and the wants to an extent. But we appreciate our citizens and their patience. We appreciate their involvement, even if they have to come with criticism. No, we like solutions when they bring the criticism, but we need to know so we know what we need to address. And we really appreciate the league and the job it does. It does a great job. I mean, it does a tremendous job for all of our cities, whether they're big or small, urban or rural, black or white, or other ethnicities. It's a great job that they do in servicing our cities.
And Mr. Cochran, I'll give you the final word.
Well, I thank you for this opportunity. If your listeners have heard anything from us today, we love our cities. We want to give them all the tools necessary to build vibrant communities where people are proud to live and they can flourish and be successful.
Greg Cochran is the executive director of the Alabama League of Municipalities, and Tony Haygood is the mayor of the city of Tuskegee. Thank you all so very much for stopping by. It was a pleasure talking with you all.
Thank you.
you.